Hello and welcome to the Inter Show. Just a quick explanation. I'm doing this episode by myself because we had technical difficulties with Anchor. To be honest, I think we are at the stage now where we're outgrowing Anchor's service. We did record one yesterday, myself and Alessandro. Unfortunately, we kept getting cut off, it was very difficult to get a recording done in the first place. And then we found out afterwards that Anchor actually hadn't even saved the recording. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a synopsis of what we've been discussing, the four of us, since last week's match. First of all, Alessandro was talking to me yesterday about the fact that he hadn't seen the whole of the first half. I think he was working during it, but he was saying that it looked really good. The movement looked good. It looked sharp. Everyone looked like they were doing what was expected of them. And I would agree with that. At times, Anthony said this to me as well, that at times it looked like we were playing with almost no formation. Anthony and I were talking to each other during the match, and during the first half, we both kept asking each other exactly what is the formation and who is playing where, and it seemed as if the players were interchanging position and that they were doing it rapidly. And in one sense, that sounds chaotic, but actually it looked like it was working. It looked fluid. It looked like it was surprising Torino. And I think both Anthony and I felt that. Obviously, after half time, the whole situation changed. Alessandro's point to me last night was he felt that the players are still not 100% fit and 100% ready for the season. He particularly feels that that's true of Brozovic and Perisic, following on from their exploit at the World Cup, getting to the World Cup final. A point that I made about the World Cup final was that whilst it was a huge achievement for Croatia to get to the final, and I said this to Anthony and Alessandro, that as a Welshman, I can only dream of seeing Wales at the World Cup, never mind them getting to the World Cup final. And Croatia is of a very similar size to Wales. For a confidence player like Brozovic, getting to the final, getting to that big opportunity and actually losing it can sometimes be a bigger blow than having a sort of mediocre tournament, and I just hope that that isn't going to be the case with him. But Alessandro feels that both Brozovic and Perisic look a bit jaded after going so deep into the tournament and only recently coming back to pre-season training. I felt that the players switched off at half-time against Torino and felt that they really it's very, very difficult to pick yourself. I always feel it's very, very difficult to pick yourself up once you've switched off. If you then need to sort of re-energize your performance, it's very difficult to go from switched off to energized again. And another factor is we still don't have that ball playing centre midfielder who can dictate the play when things are going our way, but also can put the foot on the ball and take the sting out of the game when things are not necessarily going as well as we perhaps would like. So that's a problem. I put a poll up on Twitter to ask people what they felt was the biggest factor behind this poor start. I was quite enthused to see that nobody voted that it was Auxilio and Sunning's fault. I've been a major critic of Auxilio and Sunning in the past, but they've really delivered what Spalletti wanted, so it's very difficult to lay any blame at their door. the transfer market over the summer was a very complete one. The icing on the cake would have been Modric. That didn't happen, but really, it's difficult to see how we could have done much better. 56% gave Spalletti the blame, 44% gave to the players. Alessandro felt that was probably a reasonably fair reflection, that fault could be apportioned to both sectors of our club, the sort of managerial technical side and the players. I was arguing more that the players should be switched on enough to go out there and perform, and that I find it very difficult to imagine who at this stage we could get that is better than Spalletti. Spalletti, we have to remember, is one of the best managers in Italy and has been for a very long time. And I certainly have faith in him that he will get the job right eventually. But obviously that needs to be sooner rather than later. Leon, I think, was very disappointed by the performance, but he was talking about the draw yesterday for the Champions League with a lot of enthusiasm, and I think that he feels, as we all do, that we've gone back into the Champions League to play sides like Barcelona, Spurs, and PSV Eindhoven. And Alessandro was saying that PSV will probably be the Cinderella of the group. That said, I don't think that going to Holland is going to be a walk in the park. This is a young PSV side who I believe won the Dutch league last year and are widely tipped to win it again this year. So I certainly don't think that getting out of Holland with 3 points is going to be an easy task. Probably not even to beat them in Milan, if truth be told. Then we've got the two massive matches, and potentially Tottenham, we could end up playing them at Wembley. That's still to be decided. And a European night at what many would deem to be the home of football is always special. It's always a dream for all fans. And realistically, yeah, we could have got an easier group, but did we want to go into the Champions League to play supposedly weaker standard teams? I would argue that we didn't. It's nights against the likes of Barcelona and Spurs that we've been longing for all the years that we've been out of the Champions League, and now we're back there. We need to test ourselves against the best. It's going to be very tough, and certainly I don't think we should be aiming for anything other than a top two finish and going forward in the tournament. But at the same time, at this stage of our development, it might be more realistic to not accept third place as our target. We want one of those top two places, but to be accepting of it if we do finish in third place, and realizing that in such a tough group, that could be a form of progress going forward. I have some news about another Interclub. You'll remember that we did a feature on the Interclub in London a couple of weeks ago. A friend of mine, Ian, based in Belfast, is looking to set up an Interclub in Belfast. He already has about 15 or 16 members, but he's looking for people from across that region to join the club if they have an interest, and would welcome anyone from anywhere, first and foremost. But obviously, the likelihood is he's looking for people from Antrim, Armagh, Down, Fermanagh, Tyrone, Donegal, Leitrim, Cavan, Monaghan, Louth, Derry, or as Ian would call it, Londonderry, to join the club and to really represent that region of Ireland. as part of an interclub, and to get together to watch matches together, perhaps attend go-to matches in Italy or elsewhere together. And Ian will be joining us next week to talk a little bit more about that. In terms of the rest of the show, I'm going to make it a short one because I think it's a little bit monotonous if it drags on with just the one voice. So just very quickly looking at the history section that we like to bring you, I thought that we'd give a special mention to the 4-0 win, which happened on the 29th of August 2009 against Milan in the derby. A really special match. Again, that season we didn't have the greatest of starts. We drew with Bari at home, and then went and hammered Milan, technically in an away fixture, which then led into the rest of probably the most glorious season in Inter's history. So I think there's reason to be optimistic that things will come together eventually. And until next week, and I have more guests with me, Forza Inter.
The podcast you just heard was published with Anchor. Got something you want to say to the creator of this show? Send them a voice message using the Anchor app, free for iOS and Android.